That's just the first song.
Hey folks, I'd like to introduce you to the Classic Rock Album by Album podcast. Welcome to the Classic Rock Album by Album podcast, where no stone is left unturned in the show's epic quest to review and dissect every single rock album ever made. Join self-proclaimed rock authorities Chris Carson and Lee Bowie on their epic journey to uncover the true classics. You can find the Classic Rock Album by Album podcast wherever podcasts can be found, including Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Our website address is classicrockalbumbyalbum.libsyn.com. That's LIBSYN.com. And we can be reached on Facebook at fb.me/Classic Rock Album by Album. See you soon from the Classic Rock Album by Album podcast.
This is Lynn Goldsmith, rock photographer, and you are listening to Dave and Dave Unchained.
You know, you get what you'll see on the videos, you get what you hear on the record, but you get a whole lot more. It's not laser beams. It's not hydraulics. You know, when you buy a toy and you have somebody set up your toy in the corner and stand there and say, hey, what do you think of my toy? You know what your answer usually is. What you need is some simple things that take people to operate them. So we have a boxing ring. We set that up, and without giving away the whole trick here, a boxing ring mysteriously appears. And when you put a boxing ring in front of an audience, well, obviously, hey, what's it doing in my show? There's a little sense of humor there. But you combine it with an unpredictable kind of music and hit it with the right kind of lights, and you do it with your own finesse. It has a very jarring effect, and it's not the one that you might expect.
This is the 30th anniversary of Skyscraper, if you can believe it or not. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's hard to believe. An album that not only did you participate on and write, but you also co-produced. And so I wanted to ask you, how did that whole concept of that record initially come about?
Like many artists who have been very successful at one thing, they like to change things up a bit. So, a little bit, So we had done Eat 'Em and Smile, and then when it came time to do the next record, Dave was interested in, taking a little bit of a different approach and trying some different types of songs. Mm-hmm. So we started demoing stuff, and I'm an engineer, right. And, I've always engineered my own music and produced it, and I also always had my own studio. So we started cutting demos and stuff, mm-hmm. And we really liked the way it flowed. Just, Dave and I mm-hmm. working together. So we decided to produce the record ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
What was your partnership like? Did you guys flow very well together?
Yeah. David Lee Roth has a particular, like anybody, he has a particular persona and a creative intention. So you have to align with that when you're working with somebody. And he's a very good sort of partner when there's a connection. You know what I mean?
Right.
He's very wise because he depends on people around him that he can trust for right. certain things. At the end of the day, his instincts are at the forefront.
Right.
But, we talked about everything.
Right.
Every aspect of it, we discussed and try to push our ideas into a better place. We agreed most of the time.
Was it considered much of a risk because it was a different direction, a move away from the whole big rock kind of sound?
Well, of course. Whenever you make a record and you're coming off of a very successful record, anything can feel like a risk because even if you make a similar record, that can be a risk because you can, by the time you finish it and release it, the whole scene could change.
Sure.
And you're stuck in the 90s with a record that sounds like the 80s or something.
Right.
You just go in there and you put your best foot forward. The risk is always there, but if artists didn't take risks, we wouldn't have the Beatles, we wouldn't have
sure.
David Bowie,
of course.
And then you take bands like the Stones or something like that. There's not a lot of risk in what they do, but there's no need.
Right.
And they're just not that kind of artist.
Sure. Now, were there a lot of extra songs off of that, what you already released, or no?
Well, we would go into the basement, bang out ideas. Guys would bring ideas in, and we worked them up, and then Dave would pick the ones that he liked.
Okay.
And so there was, there's some leftover demos for sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
And in terms of something like Stand Up, which was the second single, some have cited in the past that song had stopped Dave's momentum because of its very different sound. Do you view it that way, or do you think that was just unwarranted criticism?
Well, it was a departure, and that was a song that Brett Tuggle came in with, the keyboard player.
Okay. Yeah.
And Dave likes pounding dance music also.
Right.
So that song had elements of that. It's not a bad song at all, but
not at all.
It's not Panama, you know what I mean?
Right.
Whenever an artist strays, there's always a contingent of critics that have an in to use it as an excuse to use their adjectives in burying an artist sometimes, just for the act of trying to prove some kind of intellectual supremacy or something. But there are very inspired critics also. It's like in any field. There's everything from Gandhi to gangbangers, you know what I mean?
That's true.
There's total hack writers that don't have the instincts of what the artist is about, and they'll just write based on other things. A very seasoned professional writer, a good one, is like anybody else. They're inspired in the sense that they can listen to an artist's work, they know the past work, they're able to kind of see where the artist may have missed the mark, or where they really nailed it, or evolved their craft, or actually retarded it a bit. So, but they're as rare as Tiger Woods, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And in terms of the song Damn Good, a lot of people really have a strong affection for that tune.
Yeah.
That was another different move, but in a different way. It was obviously acoustic, and it was very reflective, which is a different lyrical. What was the whole momentum behind that song? Or what was that sort of him reflecting back on his days in VH, or?
Well, you'd have to ask him that, but I can tell you where the music came from. That was a track that I had written for a solo record.
Okay.
And I never played it for Dave because I thought, wow, this isn't going to be anything that he's going to like. And then he accidentally heard it.
Okay.
And he's like, what is that? And I said, it's something I'm working on. And he really liked it. We really loved the track. There's something very magical in that track, you know. We recorded the track, and then Dave wrote the lyrics. He would take the music and go for a car ride.
Right.
And write the lyrics, you know.
Right.
He has his own specific way of doing that, but the song resonated with him in a very, I think, nostalgic kind of a way. Mm-hmm. So the lyrics reflect that. I love it. I love the lyric. I love the track.
Yeah, beautiful song.
I'm glad, and I noticed that too. Listen, as an artist, you've got your radar out, and you feel everything. And what you're saying about stand-up, I felt that. Mm-hmm. What you're saying about Damn Good, I felt that. You know, so my feelings of the record are not so far off from the majority.
Do you think it's a misunderstood album?
Well, no, because people will understand it in their own way. Okay. Nothing is misunderstood because you're the one that is understanding it, and your perspective is unique. So I can't say it's misunderstood. I could say that it's a departure, and it was a bit of a departure.
Right.
And it's the kind of thing where I think there's some real nuggets, really great pieces on that record, like Hina. That's one of my favorite.
Sure.
There were songs that didn't really resonate that much with me, but, I kind of worked through them. It's the same kind of thing that happened when I released Sex and Religion.
Okay.
Which was very different than Passion and Warfare. So you have a contingent of people that don't know what to make of it, you know?
Yeah. No, it's interesting. And it's interesting. I went to see you at the Academy when you released that album with Devin on vocals, and I had seen you with Whitesnake and with Dave and all this stuff. I always take the ride, and I always say that about your music is you really always provide a ride. You're never going to get Vai album that's like, oh, here's just another. It's never like that because it's always a different it's always a totally different element, which is nice. And in terms of the Skyscraper tour, how did you find that experience? It obviously was more elaborate than the one before, and you had all kinds of stuff going on with the surfboard and the boxing ring and stuff like that. How was that tour for you?
Well, parts of it were great. I loved the guys I was with and all, but parts of it were really challenging, because Dave was going through changes, and he wanted the show to be presented a different way, and it was a compromise for me on some levels,
Right.
What I would wear, the way I moved.
Okay.
And he has that right, obviously, because it's his record. But, it got to the point where I felt like I made the best contribution I could.
Right.
But there was always in the back of my... And I enjoyed working with him. I learned so much from Dave. I cite him as one of my mentors,
Sure.
But in the back, as an artist that's compelled to express his own ideas, which I am...
Right.
There came a point where my inner artist person said, okay, enough is enough. Now you got to stop messing around and make this music that is really important to you.
Right, right.
So that's why.
And did Billy Sheehan's departure have any impact on you?
Well, I didn't like that he wasn't in the band. I love Matt Bissonette.
Right, sure.
But I loved being out on tour with Billy, too. He's a friend, and I thought that we created some really cool stuff together.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you work with what you have.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
And we had a great band. I mean, it was really a great band. Both the Eat 'em and Smile and the Skyscraper.
Right. That's true. That's very true.
But you adjust.
Right.
You know?
Of course. And what was the record company's reaction when you handed in Skyscraper?
I'm not really sure.
Oh, okay.
Because I know that they liked it. They said they liked it because it had some commercial potential.
Right.
Because of, songs just like Paradise, and it was a different kind of record. So, they went with it.
Absolutely. And, you on stage, you're a very colorful performer for, as you well know, sometimes instrument guitarists are not as interesting to watch on stage, but you always are very interesting to watch in your movements, in your expression, in even your clothing, everything, did a lot of that performance stage come from your years with DLR?
Well, as my wife would say, the ham is cooking.
Is that her expression?
Yeah, I'm a total ham. I love theater. I love performance.
Right.
I think I'm an okay performer. I like performing. I like moving my body. I always have. I always pictured myself doing that. And it evolves as time goes on. You kind of get better or more natural, more organic with your expression. So for me, it's about being connected with the note and allowing that note to manipulate your whole psyche, your body movement, your expressions,
Sure, absolutely. And did you were recently appeared on Sammy Hagar's Rock and Roll Road Trip. What was your impression of Sam?
Oh, he's great. He's another very colorful, animated kind of an artist. He's down to earth, and he's funny, and he's very talented, and still like an excited kid.
Right, very much so, yeah. Did he talk to you much about your time with Roth, or no?
No.
Surprised, being that they had the same job and all.
I don't gossip, you know what I mean? I don't, I try not to, and a little alert goes off in me every time if something disparaging or condescending or critical starts to come out of my mouth, because it's unnecessary.
Right.
And it's not true.
Absolutely.
So, and that's the same if I'm talking to somebody about a band or, or their band or anything. So, talking to Sammy, he probably has more Dave stories than me. Well, maybe not.
But now also, in terms of working with Coverdale, Zappa, and Roth, how would you compare the three, and what did you learn from each?
Well, they're all very focused, very confident, and very talented. And they all had various tools and strengths in different places. And I was really fortunate. I learned so much from all of them, I it's hard to kind of say. With Frank Zappa, I learned independence. With Dave Roth, I learned how to express myself in front of a large audience.
Right.
With David Coverdale, the whole Whitesnake experience was a period for me where